I
Hello.
am here and so excited to have this conversation with you. How about you introduce yourself?
I'm Bully Hay, but my real name's Jonno Colman. But yeah, Bully Hay for all music things.
Yes. And we're going to get to all the music
Mm,
things because there's a lot of excitement happening for you right now. Um,
there is.
which I'm so excited about. But we are having this interview because we want to go deep into who Bully Hay is and how he got here, where he came from. That's you. So, can you tell us about when you were young, where you grew up, and how music got integrated into your life?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm from Tasmania, Australia, which is a very small island on the bottom tip of Australia, and it's one of the islands that is closest to. Well, it's not the closest, but it's one of the closest inhabitable islands to Antarctica.
Wow.
So when you think about Australia and the outback and the hot desert and that kind of thing, Tasmania is not that. It's more like Lord of the Rings, but not as Lord of the Rings as Canada. But yeah,
Canada is a pretty special place, though. Have you been?
no, no,
Okay.
I'd love to
Yes.
go.
Someday we're going to get you out over here. You got to see all the things. So
Yeah.
you grew up there, and were you into music since you were a young boy?
Oh, look, yeah. So my father, John, he's a quite a prolific folk musician.
Okay.
So through all the 70s and 80s. He was in bands, and so I was exposed to the music world through him. And my brother and sister and a couple of other family members extended, play music. And so our Christmases and family gatherings were always guitars come out, everybody starts singing. There's all these harmonies flying around and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's been I guess ingrained in me since I was little, but I didn't really pick up a guitar properly and learn how to play it till I was about 14.
Wow. Yeah, but there's something to
Mm,
be said for getting your children around instruments when they're young, hey?
mm,
It's
yeah.
fair.
Except mine, they don't know. They've been exposed to music the whole time, but no, not into that, which is
Oh,
fine. They can do whatever they want. But me and my sister and my brother, yeah, we were right into it from day one.
okay. And so as you were
Mm,
growing up, you didn't necessarily play. Would you say you had a good
no,
childhood? You had a brother and a sister, and
yeah, I have three sisters
wow.
and a brother. Um, I thought when I was going through it as a kid that I had a good childhood, but and most of it for the best part was good. I was in a loving environment, but it was a confusing childhood. My parents like they split up right after I was born, so I was probably one, maybe 18 months old when they split, and they both moved. They were always on really good terms. I was lucky, so they moved apart and they both repartnered and they both had kids. So it was kind
Wow.
of uh, living between two worlds constantly,
Okay.
two very different households, two very different um, ways of upbringing.
I think that's something a lot of people
Mm.
can relate to, right?
Yeah,
Happens quite often.
yeah,
And then you went to high school, you finished high school, and what happened after? You ended up being in a relationship, you were married.
yeah. So my teenage years were pretty tough, like going through high school. I was in a school that was like I kind of liken it to prison.
Oh,
It was full on, like a super rough school, and I was the shortest kid in school. So, like from the year 7 to through year 7 and 8, I was the shortest boy in the whole school, and so um, I got pretty bullied pretty heavily through that time. But yeah, and like battled through depression and stuff. At a pretty young age, like the age of 13, kind of thing, and had to learn how to fight and all of
oh
that.
no.
But um, but yeah, got through to year 9, and that was kind of 14, 15 years old, learning to play the guitar. And I played the guitar in school and put together a band, and then it was like overnight I was popular just because I held this instrument, and life became easy for those last 2 years.
Something makes me sad about that.
It was, yeah, I remember it. The week before, being relentlessly bullied by this kid, and Aaron, and the week after, I played the guitar, in a school assembly. And the week after, Aaron was like, "Hey man, that was great. Can we be friends?" And I was like, "Wow,
Well,
like I hate you."
I know who you are.
And like, yeah. And so it was the superficial
Yes.
level of understanding of how it doesn't mean anything. Sometimes, you connect with people through music all the time, and that has meaning, of course. But on the superficial level, the people that wanted to be your friend just because you seemed more popular was, yeah, like from that time on, it's always been a little bit hard, to know where people stand with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pushing on through to college. And here in Tasmania, college is like year 11 and 12. It's university is the next step on. But in college, yeah, I met who was going to become my wife through there, and we stayed together for 24 years.
Wow. And you have children?
Yeah, 2 kids.
You
Yeah, 14 and
Okay.
17.
So pretty close to the ages of
Yeah.
mine. Um,
Oh yeah.
yes. And then what happened? Can you tell us what happened? I mean, life is hard. Marriage is hard. Relationships are hard. These are the things people can relate to, and you don't have to go into all of the details, but I guess you probably were going through hard things that helped you write your music. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like 24 years is a long time. Like a lot happened in those
Yes.
years. And later, recently in the last 1 year, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 2 and ADHD. And so I get the special spicy mix of those
Yeah.
two to deal with. And I learned about this, and in some people, those you know, symptoms of ADHD are there as a kid, but they're not as pronounced, and you can mask your way through life pretty far until you come through severe emotional stress and traumas. And that can just bring this all forward until you can't mask with people anymore, and you go out of control. So you can't do this on your own. You realise there's something wrong. And for me, I look back on all of those years from being a kid to where I am now, and I can pinpoint all of these moments that that was so full on, like that was so hard to handle. And then at the end of my marriage, that was like the worst point of being out of control that I'd ever had
Hmm.
before. It was the hardest time that I'd ever been through. And that, I could just see the map, and I could, after my diagnosis, I could see many of the decisions that I'd made when I was in a hyper elevated mood and made irrational decisions, dangerous choices, and making decisions in this mood and this mood are the wrong times to ever make decisions.
But that's
and
hard.
and
Like,
never and then
and throw in,
we'd never know. Yeah,
well, throw in your
never really
heart,
knowing.
right? I mean, your heart's involved, and so then the emotions really go.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, that I guess across those years, it wasn't all like that. Like there's obviously, great times, and I'm in a great position in my life now. I feel good about my life in
yes.
general. You know, a new partner and changing the way that I've lived. It's hard to break habits of 24 years, but it's good now. But I guess, thinking of the premise of your show, perhaps, going through what I have over those last 24 years have shaped me as a person and definitely shaped my music. And it's like forging, the iron out of the fire to a degree. It's soft in the beginning and you feel harder now. And it's kind of like, yeah,
So
but it's a
now,
journey of
now that
understanding.
you're happy,
Mm.
is your music just gonna
Let's go
the
back.
music's just gonna go downhill?
I've got plenty to draw upon, don't
I'm
worry.
just kidding. I'm kidding. But
There's a deep, there's a deep well of material.
but
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? Is that um as artists, I'm a different kind of artist, but that that's the well-known conversation. That's what happens is all of these things in life really do uh I think we use art to help us get through those things, but also people relate to all of that, and you can use all of those hard things to make beautiful art, that beautiful music, beautiful whatever, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's right. Music, the best art and visual art and musical art is often just drawn from pain. Like it comes from pain and it's like an unleashing or an exorcism of pain, and a way to deal through that time. So
is
yeah, there's
there,
fantastic art as well that comes from happiness, but
yeah,
I'm sure some of that is coming.
yes.
But yeah,
But is there any significant song that, or something that stands out to you that you remember going through that really came from something really, really significantly hard for you?
yeah. There's two songs. So one is the song "I Can Be Your Lover," and that is a song of these pretty much what we're talking about. These little snapshots of life at different ages. And I remember writing that song and getting towards the end. And the premise of the song, "I Can Be Your Lover," it's the words, "I hope you can understand. I can't be your friend, but I can be your lover," over and over again. And it has a dual meaning. And one is, I can't be your friend because I'm closed off. My heart is closed off. It's like hiding behind a shell of ice or something. And I can't, I'm not going to connect with you as deeply as I should because I feel like there's broken chunks of me through the years that they haven't been put back together. But I can be your lover and I can be there with you, but I'm not. You're never going to get in. So that's like one
Wow.
side of it, and, and the other side of it is that I can't be your friend, but I can be your lover, as in I'm going to be more than your friend. So so it has this kind of dual meaning to
Yeah.
me. Yeah. But going through that song, one of the most pivotal parts of my life was losing my best friend to suicide. And I remember writing the line in that song, he took his own life at a age of 30. I think it was right before his 30th birthday or just after, and disappeared. And we'd kind of been estranged for a long time. So as he was, we didn't know this at the time, or we did know actually. That was my first introduction to bipolar disorder.
Really?
He had bipolar 1, and none of me nor any of our friends really understood what that meant. Like back then, we just thought it was called manic depressive disorder. So it was kind of like, oh, he's okay, but sometimes he's like in such a deep hole, like no one can reach him. And but he'll come out of it. That's fine,
No.
And as we got up, he was like the crazy guy. Like it was so funny. Like we would just laugh and laugh and laugh at everything that he said and did, and the life of the party and that kind of thing. But as we got older, and some of us were having kids, I had little kids. His substance abuse became out of control, and so didn't feel like I could have him in my home, even though he was my oldest friend. Like since we were babies, I couldn't have him there because I didn't know what he would do. It was just kind of off the show all the time. And so, towards the end, I'd only get phone calls from him when he was hyper and really drunk. So like I'd get the phone call at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, and he'd be slurring his words and, having a laugh, but then saying, I miss you and I want to hang out. And I'd go, oh, that's okay. Well, why don't we book something? And he'd go, yeah, we book it in for Saturday. But he'd always cancel. It kind of drifted away to that extent. And then, he disappeared. His mother and sister, had called me saying, we need to find him. He's gone. He's taken his car. The last thing we've heard of him was the police are looking for him because he'd driven his car to a fuel station and filled his car up and just drove off and ran for it because he had no money. And his mother was, concerned because he'd taken a length of hose, from the garden hose. And we were like, what does that mean? We thought, oh, it's probably just him cutting the hose because he was making a bong or something.
Oh, no.
And but no, he was gone. And so we'd search for him right across Tasmania, which is a big island, and it's full of wilderness. Like, the east coast is so different from the west coast, and there's these central highlands, and it's like a country in one little island with all these different climate areas. And me and my friends spread out in different directions. So we were kind of all looking, the police were saying, he's wanted, but not for a crime. They're just saying a missing person. Everyone was concerned for him. And we looked for him at all the places where we would go as kids and teenagers, camping spots and that kind of thing. And he turns out me and my friend Pete were driving up the east coast because we thought that was the place that he'd love to be. We thought we'd find him in some campsite, just taking himself away from it all. And I'd walked into a fuel station up there, and his sister called me and said that they'd found him. And so, yeah, and he'd unalived himself.
Wow.
And he was in the Central Highlands that we'd never been to before. He made sure that we wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
that at age, yeah. Well, that at age, 29 is just like way too soon. And so, that's the line in the song, out at the lake at age 29, we didn't say goodbye.
Oh.
So it was just kind of, Yeah.
That's so
So
sad.
that was probably, yeah. And so it shook everyone.
Mhm.
Um, everyone's families and friends were just kind of impacted by that like a wave. And yeah, so it took me, years and years. Like, I guess you don't really recover from that because it always comes
Yeah.
back. But
And
yeah, but in the end, it was,
did you
yeah.
say,
I was going to
oh,
say that,
sorry. Yes, go ahead.
no, it's all right. It was something that later helped me save my brother, who was diagnosed with bipolar as well.
Really?
And I saw kind of the patterns coming, and I was able to notice signs and that kind of thing. And he's thriving now. So
Wow.
some
I'm
good
so
came out of
happy
it.
to hear that. And I want to go back to while we're on the bipolar, because there could be other people watching this who are struggling, or they don't know, they haven't had a diagnosis for bipolar. What are some of the signs? What are some of the things that made you feel like you should get checked?
Well, for me, it came from having periods where I couldn't pin a single thought down. So being completely in this tornado of and fatigued state where there is no, I'd been thinking, what's wrong? I feel so down and so stressed, and I can't pinpoint the reason. I know it's there, but there's all this, it's terrible. Things are so bad, I can't pinpoint the thought down, and bouncing between that and periods of intense hyperfocus and massive inspiration, and being extremely elated and being able to make huge grand plans, or talking yourself into spending obscene amounts of money because there's what could possibly go wrong. This is absolutely the right idea. And going from things like that down to this
Mm.
crushing feeling like you can't get out of bed thing. And I thought that was ADHD. And I didn't realize how bad it was until I was kind of reaching that point in the end of my marriage, and basically looking at it and going, I'd moved out of the family home, and I was living in a shitty rental, and doing a lot of self-reflection and realizing that I needed help, and going down a TikTok rabbit hole, which is dangerous because you can convince yourself of a lot of things there. But it kind of got me thinking, and I'm like, this is probably I reckon I've got raging ADHD. I thought, this is why my mind's going
Because
so
it
fast,
feels,
and
because
this is
it's like
why.
dopamine. It's
Mm,
almost like your dopamine's like crazy, crazy high,
mm,
or it's crazy, crazy low. So I could see how you could confuse that. But
yeah,
what is
yeah.
kind
Well,
of the
don't
difference?
leads to it. But yeah, it's well. In the ADHD sense, it is like your brain is constantly craving dopamine. Whether you're feeling good or feeling bad, you're going to scroll for hours, or you're going to drink a lot, or you're going to do drugs, or you're going to make poor choices because you need to feel something.
Hmm.
And I was at this kind of traumatic stage where, with the worst time of my life, I'd the guilt and everything of leaving the home, and my kids and how they would feel about me and everything. And the I had to look inward and go, why is this my fault? Like, it must be my fault. It must be my fault, and so what's wrong with me? And so I went to my doctor, and the doctor prescribed me antidepressant medication and that kind of thing. And that never touched the
Mm.
sides. It just gave me side effects, and it didn't do anything. And eventually I went back and I said, I think that I've got ADHD. And the doctor's like, oh, well, everyone's online expert,
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I feel like something's. And he goes, all right, we'll book you a consultation, and ended up getting assessed. And I remember I was on tour, and I came back off the tour, and I had a really bad cold, and I was in the down, like getting sick as bad in that state, and I was kind of at the airport trying to get to my car so I could do this telehealth consultation with a psychiatrist. I'm like, God, I'm talking to a psychiatrist. I must be crazy. And the psychiatrist, we went through it, all of the assessment, and he said, well, you have bipolar disorder type 2. And I was like, no, I don't. No way. No, I definitely don't. And he's like, you do? And I was like, no, I've been all around this. My friend had it. He lost his life. My brother had it. I'm not like
Yeah.
them.
Denial.
And he said, I said, I'm not like them. I can still get up in the downward state, and I can still get up and show up and do what I need to do, even though it's at extreme, hiding all of that and just showing up and going to work or doing a gig or whatever. I can do that. So I mustn't have it. I mustn't have it. And he said, well, you have. And I said, I just thought I had ADHD. And he goes, oh, yeah, your ADHD is all hell. And I was like, oh, great, cool. So I've got
Both.
the, I'm super spicy.
Super
But,
spicy. It's true. But you know what? That's
so,
why
you
it's such a
know,
big thing to do, to go seek help. And I think that's something that, you know, you don't make light of. It's part of actually being a healthy person is going and saying, like, I need a professional, right? And
yeah,
it's
well, it's
okay. It's okay.
surrender. Mm, yeah, it's a surrendering of, okay, because it takes a long time to get to that point, because you think you know better, and often you do. It's you. It's your feelings. You know what's going on in your life and your mind, and you realize why you're doing what you're doing, and until it gets to the point where you're living so unhealthily and you're out of control of yourself, and you can't show up.
Yeah.
You can't show up and do what you need to do, and you feel like you're missing out on life, or you're making other people's lives worse, and then you go, I surrender.
Yes.
I have to call for help, or things are going to get
You
even
know, and
worse.
there's that saying, I say this all the time, and it's, you don't heal your wounds, you bleed all over the people who don't cut you.
Mm,
And,
mm,
you
mm-hmm.
know, it's one of
Yeah.
those things where there's a point where we have to take responsibility. And you did that. So, I mean, you should be proud of yourself, you know?
I don't know if I'm out of it. I guess it was a necessary step, and I'm glad that I did, and I'm still on the path,
Yeah. And now,
so as we all
but
are.
how has that helped
Mm.
you? Now that you know there's a problem, do you have a way to try to,
Well, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I started when the first part of it was this massive sense of grief, because I didn't know if all the choices that I've been making in life were because of the
yeah.
bipolar, or was it which part of it was
Mm.
me, and which part of it was these hyper or depressive states which don't feel like me, like when I'm in them. And so what's authentic, like, where is it at? And got all these, decisions and things over the past, I was just like, it's because of that. And if I'd known earlier, maybe I'd done something different. And so you go through all of these like grieving
Stages. Yeah.
mechanisms, and then you come out of it and go, okay, now I'm hyper aware of what is happening. So when when I'm feeling really hyper and I'm going to make a decision that, a super important decision that could be financial, or it could put me through a whole lot of stress and stuff. But at the time, it seems like a great, fantastic idea. Catching yourself and going, I might just think about that for 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. And if it's still a good idea at the end of those 2 weeks, then maybe it
Then
has
maybe the
legs.
Ferrari's mine.
Yeah. Uh, and same in the downers. The downers different. The downers like, don't think about anything. Don't make any decisions, because in the downers you want to give everything up. You want to go, that's, screw this. I'm going to sell my
Yeah.
house. I'm going to sell everything.
Wow.
I want to leave my job. I want to move state. I want to crawl out of my own skin. I want to be somebody else. I want to start again. That kind
I
of
think you
thing.
just wrote a song.
And I did. It's called Black Dogs and Songbirds.
That's okay. Yes,
and
yes. Okay. And you wrote
yeah,
probably so much amazing music based on all of this. And so there's that. People can definitely relate to it. And that's why people are loving your music. They can relate to it. So even though you've been through some really rough, rough times, did you continue to write through all of that?
I wrote through all of that without knowing that I had those issues. So I didn't know at the time that I had bipolar ADHD and stuff. I was just writing music and just getting it out of my heart and head onto a page. So I didn't have to think about it as much,
Yes.
So I was going through that. My first album, I look back at that and now I go, holy shit, I was telling myself all of these. I'm reading Black Dogs and Songbirds is about peaks and lulls. Wash Off the World is about peaks and lulls.
Wow.
Like, it's all of this, like, wow, your mood's pounding and your life's going between these extreme highs and extreme lows. You're writing about it. All the year or two before you upended your life and moved out and like did all these things. It was all there. And then the second album, Anywhere But Here, halfway through the writing of that album, I realized I had these, neuro issues.
Mm-hmm.
and so and that was written before and during and after the kind of the ending of the relationship.
Yeah.
So it's pretty tumultuous, like all those few years, looking back at that and going, wow, like you were telling yourself, you were like telling yourself you had all these, you're trying to explain it to yourself and you weren't listening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, if your psychiatrist heard the songs, he would have been like, how do you not see this? How are you still in denial?
Yeah, you're talking to yourself, come on.
Wow. But that's why this interview is so
Yeah.
important. That's why I love this so much because um, there's the bully Hay that everybody knows who's, getting up on the famous, you've been hitting the top of the charts. And, going back to high school where everybody or school where all of a sudden when you're in a band, the world can be so shallow and you're so cool and everything's perfect. And the reason I do these interviews is because we're just humans. And I think that
Yeah.
is what is so important to share because we can all see what everybody's doing. Um, People can think that Bully Hay is perfect and look what he's doing and all these really shallow people too. No offense, you know what I'm saying. All these really shallow people
Yeah.
too can be they think they can't relate, you know? But we
Mm.
can relate because everybody goes through different trials. Everybody
Yeah,
has something
they do.
different. And so the real bully hey is a person who actually has been through really hard times and you're still standing and you've still come out of that and you had to surrender and you had to get help. And I think probably it's made you a lot more of a beautiful person, you know?
Well, thank. But the yeah, my old boss used to say, you know, when you were thinking about other people or you put people up on a pedestal, that kind of thing, that, you know, we all bleed blood. You know,
Yes.
we all bleed the same color of blood,
Yes.
and we're all humans, as you say, under the surface. But you know, we we also have to we also have the same or different struggles. My other mate says, you know, same, you know, we're all in the same boat, but we're not in the same storm. You know, so you kind of your world is everybody's world is different, and my struggles may seem tiny compared to others, or like a mountain to someone else. But the key for me has always been, um, you know, if it is to be, it is up to me. You know, it's not, no one else is going to do anything for you. You can have your support people around you, um, you know, but truly the only people that care that much about you and want you to succeed more than them is usually your mum or your
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah.
And as much as your friends and everything want to support you, of course they do, and they love you, but they're not going to do it for you. And
Take
you
responsibility.
have to roll up sleeves. Yeah, and you have to fight. And sometimes the battle is having a shower,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, or it's, you know, making that hard call in part of your life that no one's going to do for you, and yeah, and sticking to your guns.
And showing your kids, you know, you're a father and showing your kids that, hey, we all go through really rough things, but we do have to take responsibility and we have to take the bull by the horns, so to
It's
speak, and figure it
yeah,
out. And
yeah, and face those face those problems, face the demons
yeah,
head on, and be strong, and you know, speak up and be there even if you're very very
yeah.
scared.
And it's, you know what? You did
Mm,
something courageous and you had to go through all of the stages when you found that out, stages of grief, honestly. And then now you're in a different place in your life and you're writing music like crazy. And do you want to tell us
yeah,
about how are things going now? What's happened? I know you went on a tour with your buddy. Um, tell
yeah.
us about that.
Well, in and amongst all of that big whirlwind, amazing things were happening, and you know, I got to, you know, I got Jeff Martin, like from the Tea Party, producing my record, my favourite band, my favourite frontman, my favourite singer. We meet in Tasmania, of all places. He's down in my city, you know, and that leads to a beautiful friendship. He's one of my best mates,
Hmm.
and we we now have, you know, he produced that first record of mine, and he took me under his wing, and we went on 2 national tours together, and it was like I was
I
dreaming
was going
most
to
of the
say,
time,
that's a dream.
you know.
That's like a little
And
boy's dream.
it was that doesn't happen, you know. That does not happen. So you're like that did happen, and people actually came to the shows that wanted to see me, and they were singing my songs in the audience, and I hadn't wanted anything more than that ever in playing music since I was a teenager, was to be in another city and see someone in the audience mouthing the words to your
Yes.
songs. And that happened. And that was one of the greatest achievements for me ever. I just thought that's okay, that's fine, I'm done. I've recorded with Jeff, he's taken me on tour, and that's happened. in these places. What the hell's going on? And, the response to that first album was more than I could have imagined. And it led into the second album, which was recorded here in the studio
Tell
with
us what your
my
albums were. What was
good
the
friend
first
Drew.
one again?
That's Black Dogs and
Songbirds. Okay.
Songbirds.
And then you had the
Yeah.
second one come out.
Second one came out just this month. It's only been out for nearly 3 weeks.
And you
So
sold
it's very fresh.
so many copies. Tell me about it.
Yeah, of the first one or the second
Well,
one?
tell me about both, but I know recently the last one, it looks like you.
Yeah, so the last one's called Anywhere But Here. And that in the first week reached number 3 on the ARIA charts, which is our Australian industry charts. So it was in the top 20 of Australian albums in week 1.
Wow.
And there's another charts called the AIR charts, which is confusing because the names sound similar. But that reached number 1 in the AIR charts for independent albums and number 1 for independent label albums in the same week. And the first album was in the same charts at number 7. So it was kind of both albums in those charts. And I was up and, camping in a camper van when I saw that one with my partner, and we opened the phone up and I'm like, what the fuck? We're like, this is fucking incredible.
Crazy.
So, second bottle of wine opens up.
Wow.
Woo!
Wow.
And we couldn't believe it. And Drew, my mate, he's my drummer. We've known each other since we were, 14 as well. And we've been playing music together all this time. He played drums on the first record. He and I produced Anywhere But Here, the second record, at home. Okay. And he and I played basically everything on the record, all the instruments, except for a couple of mates came in and did a couple of little things. And we did that. We're like, and that part was without Jeff.
Yeah. So you weren't leaning on him for all of that. That was all you, man.
It was. But wouldn't have happened without him because I would not have written either. So I would not have released any music if it wasn't for Jeff. He
believed in you.
Because I'd been playing. He did. So, I was playing and writing and recording music for all of those years, but never really putting anything out there for at least 20 years. There was all this, I never did anything. I was busy, because I run a couple of businesses as well. And I just thought, I don't have time for that. But he got me out of my house. So just incredible. And now we're looking at shows. We're booking the next tour. So,
and where are you looking to do your next tour? To do your tour?
So we have shows in our home state booked for April. So we're playing from pretty much this weekend through April, and then we're heading over to the different states and territories in Australia. So we'll kind of spread ourselves around there again. And we're looking at getting across to New Zealand and doing probably some acoustic shows all through New Zealand. But the dream is to get across to Canada.
Yes, it is.
It's a big country. And I'd love to get over there, even if it's just Drew and I in the acoustic setup that we do, and get a couple of camper vans and just drive. It would be amazing.
That honestly sounds amazing. And, I just really appreciate you starting from the beginning, because these things don't happen overnight, do they? Songwriters, look at all of these, really go to Metallica, go to all these bands and what their music looks like at the beginning, and the damage. James Hetfield went through a really hard time as a child, the loss of a mother, all of this pain and all of this hurt, and they wrote all of this music, and all of this pain was so relatable. And
Yeah.
I think that's why you have such beautiful music. It's relatable, and that's why you need to have interviews like this, because the real bully is where this music comes from, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And if it was a quick fix thing or it was happening fast, it would have happened in my 20s. My songs were so shit in my 20s. They were no good.
Yep.
So
Yep.
but it took, I didn't really do this until I was 40, so it's kind of like for some, 20 somethings and 18-year-olds, they just kind of latch onto something. Not for me. I was a slow burn. And I needed to go through all of these things to be able to feel life and live life that hard for these songs to come out of me. So it all happens,
It
for a
does.
reason. Is kind of
And
on that
and what
path.
would you
Yeah,
say to somebody going through a really hard time right now who, is really trying to be an artist, or who's not even trying to be an artist, but who's, you've had a lot of lows, you've had a lot of highs. Can you give a few words of encouragement?
it's to give yourself a break and go slow. There is no quick fix. It's a slow burn and it's a slow journey. And give yourself time to breathe, to think. And if you can't think, don't make decisions. So just wait until you come out into the clear, and and try to if you need to reinvent yourself or whatever, do it in the clear. Don't do it in the dark,
Right.
because that's when the worst decisions get
Yeah.
made.
And keep moving forward, right? I mean, you went through all these things and you could have given up, and you're still moving forward. You have to be in one of the most
Yeah, and don't rush.
you have to be in one of
Mm,
the most exciting times of your life right now.
yeah, that's it. And it didn't come from rushing. Although in the beginning there was this frantic chasing to do things, and then I realised that's just putting harder pressure on myself. And just go slow
Yeah.
and just let it happen. Take opportunities when they come. Don't say no. Sometimes say no, but
But say yes to
don't
trying
say
new
no.
things, right?
Say yes. Yeah, yeah. Say yes. If it's exciting but you're a little bit scared, just say yes.
Yeah, some of the most beautiful
Just
things come from
because.
being scared.
Yeah, and nothing. You talk to any of these great musicians, if they didn't do anything when they were scared, they'd just still be in their bedroom.
Yes.
Because you have to kind of live a little bit on the edge, and you need to dip your toe into the scary stuff, and you'll find if you can tread water through that, then it's not so scary. You start swimming and you go to the next thing and you go to the next thing.
Yeah.
But if you tried to do it straight into the deep end from day one, it's just going to hurt.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that, and I so much appreciate you meeting with me here, and just sharing all of this and being really authentic. I know that that's what the world needs right now, authenticity. And
Yes.
we're rooting for you. We're thinking about you. We love your music. Um,
Thank you.
you're a natural. You're a great artist. Your whole brand is really beautiful, and I'm so happy that you've come through some really hard times, and you're on the up and up right now, and you've you had that surrender point, because until we see, or we, I guess, embrace that there's a problem, we can't get help. We can't fix something
Yeah.
unless we know that it's broken. And So that's
Yeah.
what's beautiful is you went through all these crazy things and you're really rocking it right now and we're just so proud of you and we're going to watch all the crazy
Thank
things
you.
you're doing. Well, everyone follow Bully Hay, watch all the craziness. The music is beautiful, so I'm going to encourage everybody to go listen to your songs. And is there anything else you want to
Thank
share
you.
with us that's coming out? You have a new single?
It's really well. Actually, we are working on a little single. We're going to do. We're going to probably put something out in the next few months. Just one
Okay.
song, and then we're always constantly writing and recording. But the problem I had last time with this was I announced the release date for a record I hadn't finished yet. That was bad.
Oh,
So
don't do that. No.
so no, that was the anywhere but here, and obviously that just delayed and delayed. But no, I'm going to wait until I've finished the next
Okay.
one and keep it quiet. But no, it's all the next thing is touring.
Okay.
So we're getting out amongst it live, and big thing on my list is to get outside of Australia. In the next 12 months with any luck,
Yes.
and yeah, and just see as much as the world as we can, and take the guitars and see what
Well,
happens.
the world needs people like you, Bully, who are being authentic
Thank you.
and sharing the real you. And I love it. I really enjoyed this interview and thank you so much.